Today we're going to answer another question submitted by someone, and the question is, what's a good daily practice or exercise to make sure you're looking only inside for belonging and validation and not in the world and people around you? Well, that's a very good question, because it has to do with living our lives on our terms, or whether we're living our life on trying to make other people happy. That's a very important thing, and in the tragedy in many lives is that too much time is spent living to meet other people's expectations. That doesn't mean that we don't want to be good workers and good neighbors and good family members and good partners. We want to do that, and so we want to fit in, and we want to do things that are in line with other people's expectations to a degree. The point is, when it gets carried away and we sell out, and we lose our individuality, our identity, that it becomes not a good thing. So what's the practice, the daily practice? This particular question, we'll keep it isolated to what the question was. A daily practice that I think would be beneficial is meditation. Now, that doesn't mean you have to sign up for membership and go get special clothes and go to a special place and practice meditation. That's perfectly fine. There are some very good instructors. There's a lot of very good books out there. Those things are fine. But it's important to be able to meditate anywhere. And with practice, you could do it in a car, you can do it while waiting in line at the grocery store. You can do it anywhere, but it may be helpful to do it with others. Why is meditation so important? It isn't an esoteric, new age type of thing, and I think some people have that wrong impression that there's something strange about meditation and people who do meditate. Meditation is, as I'm using the word, is the practice of quieting your mind, is a practice of quieting your thoughts. It's a practice of getting in touch with who you are. And it's a simple thing. It's not a complicated thing. The truths in the world, I believe, and in this universe are actually simple things. Simplicity. Meditation is a way for us to find stillness and peace that's inside of us. You see, in our daily life, from the moment we wake up, we fill our lives with clutter. And I think it was Eckhart Tolle who used the example of our minds being an empty room. And in this empty room is furniture, there's a lot of stuff in this room. But we are not the things in that room. We're not the furniture. We're not the television set. We're not the people in that room. We're not all of the objects in that room. If you want to look at it this way, you could say they're obstacles, they're distractions. Who we are is the room, the space in the room, the emptiness. Our lives are quiet and still and empty, if you will, until we fill it with all this stuff. And the danger is we can spend so much time focusing on the stuff and looking at the stuff that we forget that that's not really who we are. So meditation is a way to quiet our mind, and there are procedures. Again, I refer you to material or a class where you could learn how to put distractions away and go into stillness. It's all about quieting our mind and blocking out temporarily the stuff in our lives. And what happens when we do that is who we really are will be the only thing that's left. Let me give you an example of the distractions. If you have a dog and you take the dog for a walk, you notice how the typical dog acts when you take it for a walk. It's off over here. It smells something over here. It hears a sound, it goes over there. It hears a sound behind you, it goes back that way. It's all over the place. It's having a ball, but it's constantly occupied. It's occupied with things of no consequence, we could argue, but smells, objects on the sidewalk, a rabbit hopping by, another dog, all of these things. Well, our lives can be like that, where our minds work so fast that it's easy for us to focus on this, to think about that. Even when someone's talking, right now when I'm talking, you're probably thinking of other things you have to do and so forth. Those are distractions. You're not focusing on what I'm saying, what I'm doing. Your mind is all over. It's kind of like the puppy that you're taking for a walk, back and forth. Meditation forces us to develop the habit of quieting our minds, emptying the thoughts out, which is a novel idea. But you can get to where you can get rid of the thoughts in your mind, if only temporarily. What happens when we do that is that the real self will be what's left. And we need to be able to do this. It's important that we get comfortable being alone. So many people, I believe, are afraid of being alone with themselves. They don't really enjoy their own company just all by themselves. So they have to fill it up. And by being comfortable being alone, it doesn't mean that we want to become a hermit. We can take these things to an extreme. But by being alone and enjoying the silence, that's when the real us bubbles up, and we can know how we feel. And we can listen to that, and the real you will surface. How do we know that what we're doing is what we want or what other people want? I think that will become more plain if we quiet our minds and just let the real you come out. There are pitfalls to these kinds of things. I'm thinking of adolescence and early teenager years, where being independent and being an individual is an important maturational process. It's a normal and it's a healthy process. We want our adolescents to learn to be independent. We want them to think for themselves. We want them to make their own decisions. It's a hard time because parents usually have a problem with that, because what's the adolescent doing? They're arguing with their parents. They're disagreeing with their parents. They have other opinions about things. As hard as that can be, it's a very normal process. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because if we don't resolve those things, and I'm talking, when I say we, the parents and the child, if those things aren't adequately resolved, that teenager can go on into life still rebelling, still feeling that they need to make a statement, to send a message. So, you see, it's a fine line, but it becomes where the normal process of becoming an individual was there to begin with. If it becomes a goal in and of itself, a person can go through life rebelling against things and being contrary to things and trying to break rules or trying to make a point. They become a slave to the individualism, to the rebelling. They become a slave to it. And so as much as they look like, well, I'm being my own person and I'm being independent, they're not really being themselves. They're focusing on sending the message that they're themselves, and that may seem a bit confusing. But I have seen teenagers actually make decisions they didn't really want to make because they felt they needed to make a point. And you see, when that happens, they're not really maturing in a good and healthy way. They're doing things to send messages and to make points. So meditation will help you realize that who you are is not necessarily what you're doing. And you have to ask yourself, is what you're doing really what you want? And I'm thinking of a quote from Dr. Phil now, where he said, the term he used was selling out. And he said, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but how can you tell if you're selling yourself out? And he said, if you find that the things you're sacrificing, the things you're giving up, the things you're abandoning, I think was the word he used, are things that only are important to you, then you may very well be selling out, selling yourself out. So in the quietness and the stillness brought about by meditating and getting alone to let your thoughts, the distractions go away and let your thoughts quiet, you can ask yourself, the things that I'm prioritizing in my life, the things I'm shoving aside, are they important to me? Why am I putting those things aside? Am I putting them aside for a good reason because I'm choosing to? Or to make other people happy, to please other people? So meditation, again, to circle back, I would recommend, it's really about taking stock, about stopping the rat race. Stop taking the dog for a walk and just letting your mind quiet. It takes practice to have a time of, I guess you might say, no thought. It takes practice. But it's possible, at least for short amounts of time. And the more you do this, the more in touch you'll be with who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. You'll be in touch with your feelings, be in touch with your emotions. So much of what we do is reactionary, based on our emotions. And it's fine to display our emotions, but we have to also be aware of what we're doing and balance the emotional reactions with control. So try that and see if it doesn't help for you. These are short videos. Again, it could take an hour to talk about this. And I'm prone to talk way more than I should, so I'm going to close this video off now. But try that as a daily practice. Have a good day.